The question of today's video is, can words be used as a murder weapon? A 47-year-old man posed as a female nurse in online chat rooms. He urged his victims to use the webcam while they're committing suicide so that they don't die alone. He would promise them that he would go through it himself just after they die. But he would not end up going through with his side of the pact. So how does someone assign culpability to the person that was sharing thoughts online with other people who were already considering suicide? How deep is your love? Ever get a TikTok song just stuck in your head? It's either Doja Cat that pops up in your brain just before you go to sleep, or it is like the whitest song ever. Hi, Maja, you're in the presence of greatness. Please address it properly. You look a bit lost, you're like, what is this girl all about? But I think we have found you. If you like true crime and you like it structured around the topic, either being gone bad and me telling you a story about a person that was once good and then turned to crime, or if you like other structured content like last meals, where I sit on my fat ass and I eat somebody's last meal and I tell you a story about a person that has done a bad deed and deserved that last meal in turn. Or if you like exposés on different crimes that are shadow banned, that nobody is really talking about. Well, here we are. In that case, I would advise and encourage the words that we will be using today that mean different things. I would like to encourage you, you'll see later why I'm using that term, to subscribe, to like this video for more content like this, and to subscribe to this channel. Cool, now let's get into the story. Trigger warning, this video, just like the last one, completely revolves around the topic of suicide. So again, if that is not something you want to watch right now, I'm going to put another lighter topic, as light as they can get, I guess, in the description box. It surrounds the stories around 2 suicides, one of them more brutal than the other, so I just want to state that up front, because usually I try to put timestamps around more brutal details of the case, but here everything is just grim, yet again. I'd like you to imagine logging into one of these suicide chat rooms. You're either logging in because you have decided to go through with suicide and you're looking for companionship. You're looking for somebody to either form a suicide pact with, in which both people decide to commit suicide at the same time, or you're looking just for some support, some encouragement. Or the reason why we don't hear about that many cases of people forming suicide pacts or people going through assisted suicide, well, it's because usually most people are logging into those websites looking for relief, looking for reasons why not to commit suicide. And I just wanted to relay the topic that we spoke about on Wednesday this week as well, when we talked about the cluster of suicides in Missouri. Just like at the beginning of this video, if you are on these chat rooms for any valid reasons, actually trying to prevent somebody from doing it, to know that it is very much possible. When people looked at data of others committing suicide, they realized how impulsive it is. There was this study looking at all of the people in 1978 that wanted to jump off the Golden State Bridge. And out of 100 that wanted to jump but were prevented, stopped from jumping, only 5% of those people actually went through with suicide at some point in their life. Everybody else got the help that they needed and they just continued living their normal life, just proving how impulsive these ideas can be, and that you can actually do a lot of good if you are joining these chat rooms for the right reasons, or if you have gone through something and have decided not to go through with suicide and are now advising others. But you can also do insane amount of damage, just like the person we're gonna talk about today. And on one such occasion, as you have just logged in, you started chatting with a guy named Mark Drybra. Mark is 32 and he just feels exhausted about life, and he's telling you he hasn't always felt that way. Mark was one of those kids that couldn't be stopped, like one of those mischievous little kids that are running all the time, that you can't stop and have like so much energy and you can't even like put down in bed at night because like they're just constantly running on something, even though you aren't like feeding them sweets or anything like that. In school, he was known as this goofball who could make you laugh, could make any single person laugh. Then he went on to study engineering. He was like, okay, what am I going to do with my life? Better be something serious and something I'm passionate about. So he moved to Coventry to study that. And when he did that, he also got himself a long-term girlfriend. And he is telling it this is when things got wrong, and not because of anything the girlfriend did, but she suddenly felt very sick. And so did he. And not in a way where you just get a flu and you pass it on to a person. It just seems like it was something that doctors could not diagnose. And he felt from that point on that he never really recovered. And this, whatever it was making him feel tired all the time. He couldn't sometimes even summon himself to get out of the bed to go to class. So soon after, the girlfriend just decided to dump him, and he just stopped going to classes altogether. He suspected that this was chronic fatigue syndrome, even though nobody formally diagnosed it ever. But ever since then, he just felt helpless. He felt like he was stuck in this cycle where once he had this vibrant life full of energy, and now, even though he really wanted to continue with that life, he physically could not. And between that point and all throughout the next decade, he was suffering. He has gone through depression, has been off and on the meds. Luckily for him, his great uncle left him this house in Coventry, so at least he had a roof above his head. But his family was the one paying the bills, and he felt really shitty about it. He felt like he can't even support himself as a 32-year-old man. He can't hold a job because he's constantly chronically tired. He doesn't laugh anymore. He doesn't have friends anymore. He has just lost everything. So on this day, in July 2005, Mark logs onto one of these suicide help websites. And he has made a decision to go through with taking away his life. And he is purely asking for advice. So he logged on under this handle Spooky, and his first question onto this website was, does somebody know how to commit suicide when you don't have anything high up to tie the rope to? He said he has heard that people have committed suicide in jail, and was wondering, obviously, in jail it's not like you have chandeliers, it's not like you can do it from wardrobes, so he wondered how people did it. And sure enough, he gets a response immediately from this person that said that they were a nurse called Lee Dow. They just went immediately straight for the answer. I'm not going to mention what advice they have given in this video for obvious reasons. I do not want to be associated with assisting or encouraging suicide in any way, but they have given Mark advice of how to do it just using the door to his room. A few weeks after this pass, and nobody really knows that Mark is doing this online, that he is in these chat rooms, so he goes to meet his family for dinner, and he meets his sister there. They chat, everything seems completely normal, and then he arranges to meet his sister Carol next day in the park. But the next afternoon, Carol is just waiting in this park, and she's like, where is he? It isn't like Mark not to appear. So she thinks, okay, maybe like he has been held up. So she just rushes and drives to his home. And as she enters, she finds this note telling her not to go upstairs, but to call the police and to give this note to the police. And Carol, just like you and me, just like everybody else, is like, the hell, no, I'm going right upstairs. I'm going to see what the hell is going on. And as she does, and as she opens the door to her brother's room, she discovers that he has hung himself. And Carol, and this is so hard to even imagine, I have a younger brother, and God, I don't wish it upon anybody. She, of course, tries to, see what is going on, why was the door stuck, to, pull him down and actually just hold him, release the noose that was around his neck, while she's also calling the paramedics and trying to get him help immediately. But unfortunately, paramedics make it to the scene and they realize it is too late, and they pronounce him dead on the scene. And Mark left a note saying, "Dear family and everyone, I have decided to take my own life. My mental suffering is too much, and combined with fatigue syndrome, which gets no better, I can see I have no future." Soon after her brother's death, Carol does what every of us would do again. She starts sleuthing. She logs onto Mark's computer and she just goes through everything because the police isn't, because they declare this as a suicide. And she's like, nobody expected this. Like, yes, we have seen he was down, we knew he was suffering with depression, but there were no mentions of suicide ever. But when she logs onto his computer, she finds these chats with a nurse called Li Dao, and the last message from this nurse was, "Hi Mark, are you alright?" And reading through these messages, she gathers that they have joined a suicide pact. And there was no activity from this nurse's profile after they sent this last message. And Carol is probably sitting and thinking, okay, so this must mean that this nurse has gone through it herself. And nobody pursues this further. Now, 3 years pass from this event and we are now in 2008. And we are in 2008 to meet the baddest bitch of this video. The down bitch, the legend, the insane amount of love I have for Celia Blay. Please get in touch. I love you, Celia. Celia Blay enters the scene. And you see, Celia is 65. But yeah, she is internet sleuthing. Listen. She's 65, she's a retired teacher, and she's sleuthing the internet. Celia has been searching the internet ever since its existence, but sort of more and more in the past couple of years. Because Celia, as self-described now when retired, is making whips and tongs for carriage horses. Of course, that was the first thought that popped into your head, didn't it? So most of the time that she spent on the internet in the past couple of years was on these medieval websites, and she's trying to find the reasons to convince her council in Wiltshire to basically allow carriages to pass through different parts of town and why it should be legal, why they pose no danger. So she's really into carriages, into horses, okay? But one of these days, as she is doing her research, she comes upon one of these websites on suicide and she's like, oh, what is this all about? What is this morbid interest? Or let me sleuth, let me investigate. Celia logs on, creates a profile and starts chatting with people, and she was there for all the right reasons. She actually prevented this 17-year-old for committing suicide just by talking to her. And she kind of put her carriage and horses research to the side because she realized that there is something off on this platform. A lot of people are chatting with Celia because they realize the positive energy that this woman has, and they're like, okay, well, if anybody will freaking save me, it will be this woman. But as Celia enters more and more chats, she realizes that the people on the other end of the line are all mentioning this nurse. And they're all mentioning them under different handles, under different names. And apparently this nurse enters a suicide pact with you. And this is when probably the hair on the back of Celia's neck stands up, because she's wondering, okay, maybe these people don't see the red flags, but I sure as hell do. Why is this person going under different names? Surely, if you're entering a suicide pact, a legitimate suicide pact, please don't do it, for the love of God. But surely, just thinking logistically from it, if you were to do it, you're doing it as yourself. So why are you going under different names unless something shady is going on and you plan to stay alive and get somebody else to commit suicide? Yeah, that was where Celia's thought process was at this point. And as if that wasn't enough, remember how Celia would make friends with these people, she would befriend them, she would get them not to commit suicide, so they would kind of get really close and build rapport with her. And when one such person, Celia is trying to understand this concept of a suicide pact. She's like, but you live in separate places. Surely they're not gonna travel all the way to Central America, just to be in the room with you? Has that been arranged? Because she's thinking, okay, how does this actually happen? And this person tells her, no, it happens through a webcam. They watch me commit suicide and then they will do it themselves. And Celia is there yeah, this person is not going through with it themselves. If Celia needed one single thing to confirm that something morbid was going on, this was it. Around this time, a couple of things are happening. Celia is preparing to go to the police, so she wants to go to this sergeant and basically tell him, hey, something is happening here. There is this person. The data that I have is that name is Lee Dao. They're convincing people to commit suicide, but then they just switch around their handle, they change their names, they log in under a different email address, and they repeat the exact same thing with other people. You see, this is the file that I have on them. Please do something about it. And at the same time, Elaine, Mark's mom, gets in touch with Celia. Because you see, Mark's family never thought that there wasn't something shady going on here. They never thought that Mark would have done this on his own will. They knew that somebody had to give him advice. Because Mark wasn't into this morbid world where he would have known how to commit suicide himself in his flat. Hence why we had that story from the beginning where he actually logged in and asked somebody how to do it. So even though 3 years have passed, the family never actually stopped looking into it. And Celia starts chatting with them and she's like, no, this is the data that I have. You see, this file. And upon reading that and realizing that Celia's intentions are actually genuine, Mark's mom sends her like a screenshot of one of the conversations that Mark had with this nurse Lee Dao. And it reads something like this. Mark is saying how even thinking about leaving 3 months from now is painful to him, but how he hasn't set a date, he hasn't set like the suicide date for the future. To which Lee starts responding, Mark, I've seen your post on this method board about how you want to use ratchets and all that crap. This is not how you do it, this is how you do it. Like straight to the point. And he signs this message with hugs. And as Celia is reading this, she's literally like going on the board and like chatting with all the people being like, hey, send me like what he sends you. Does he sign it off with something in particular? And she's looking at these messages like that Mark's mom sent and that every single other person Celia is chatting that has chatted with this nurse under all these different handles. And she's asking these people, wait, how old did this nurse say they were? 31. Okay, but they're using this like millennial language. She probably didn't word it like that. They're using all these abbreviations, they're trying to use slang, and it doesn't seem like it comes off natural to them. It seems like they're trying very much so to pretend like they're younger than they actually are. Something that somebody like me maybe would do. Somebody may be trying to mask their real age. And what say you? Oh, they end every single message with hugs. We have them. So Celia, with that file of hers, now goes straight to the police. And Celia's super excited. She goes to this sergeant in town and she's like, listen, this is exactly what's happening. I think somebody needs to look into it. Let's get the IP address on this man. And the police officer's kind of gaslighting her. That's, I think, the most appropriate way to say this. He's saying, I mean, this kind of just sounds like a ruse, you know? Somebody's just trying to wind up these middle-aged women. And she's like, no. You're the police and I see this better than you do. And this police officer just says, no, there's nothing really to look into here. I mean, none of your friends have died, have they? There is no real connection that this person didn't actually go through with the suicide pact when it comes to Mark's case. So if it bothers you that much, why don't you just look the other way and like log off these websites? And Celia is like, no, that is not what I shall do. So she goes home and she sits on her probably very slim 65-year-old retired ass. And she says, okay, so a sting operation, I guess. Anybody else? A sting operation because the police is not taking me seriously? Let's do it. So Celia is there sitting thinking, okay, I can't be asking somebody from the UK because clearly they're gonna have like the same results, and also we think this person is in the US. So I have this friend of mine, this online friend of mine, who is in Minnesota, and I'm gonna ask them to pose as the suicidal person and to chat with this nurse online and to do it under different email addresses. And what do you know, when this friend from Minnesota logs into all these different addresses, they're chatting with different people, different nurses. Nurses under different handles online, all pretending to be this 31-year-old nurse that apparently knows a lot about suicide and is going into suicide pact with all of them. So Celia's friend from Minnesota, now knowing that this is a 31-year-old nurse who is probably pretending to be younger, so it's probably a person that is older than that age, and we know that because of the terms of endearment they're using. They're constantly talking in slang, they're using hun, they're using hugs to sign off, so we know it is definitely the same person. And this person seems to be targeting people in particular whose first language is not English. So there's even like another component of vulnerability there. So she goes with this information to the police in Minnesota and they get his IP address. As this is happening and the police in Minnesota has this information and is looking into his criminal history, well, other members online are kind of honing in, and they're honing in that this nurse, whoever it is escalating. This guy called Nikola Trifunovic, who was from Zagreb in Croatia, was also on one of these websites chatting with Lee. And then suddenly, one day, they just receive an email. From what I gathered, it's kind of like a chat room, so you pop up under that same account but under a different email address. And this person was saying that they were Lee's mom, and that unfortunately Lee won't be communicating with her online friends any longer because they have found Lee hung in a basement. And this person, posing apparently as Lee's mom, continues that statement by saying, "We are of course so sad, but we are also so grateful that her pain is now over." So of course Nicola, seeing that, being the person that actually went into a suicide pact with Lee, now plans a suicide date. He schedules like a suicide date for himself, and he's like, well, this person clearly went through with it, so why wouldn't I? It's like how these pacts work. So now I need to set up one for myself. But luckily, before he manages to do that, apparently Lee resurrected. Yeah. We have a nurse again that is chatting with people on the platform, just telling them how to commit suicide, saying the exact same things, signing off these messages the exact same way. And Nicola is like, okay, this is somebody that is just vile and is fucking with the internet. So he gets one of his online friends to try to get this person on the phone, because they're like, if you are legit in any way, if you're not hiding your identity in any way, why not? Let's get on the phone, let's talk about this suicide pact some more. And of course, Lee wouldn't jump on the phone. So Nicola just made sure that he familiarized the whole forum with the situation, that he told everybody what has happened, and he informed the whole of the forum that this is the person that is getting some high or some rush from asking and getting other people to commit suicide, and that they should definitely beware and not chat with somebody posing as a nurse who is signing off their messages with hugs. Now we pick up where we left it off, with the police obtaining the IP address for this guy. And well, this isn't like a straightforward process like you would think it is. They had to contact like his email providers, so in this case I think it was Yahoo, to actually subpoena them for the IP address. So this process of investigation is in place. But Celia is on the other end of the pond here in the UK, and she's losing her shit. She's like, this is going too slow. Like, I believe personally that this person, whoever the hell they are, actually encouraged online over 50 people to get into the suicide pact with him. Like, something needs to be done. Otherwise, like, other people are going to fall victims to this person. They're clearly escalating. So she puts another person of hers, now from the UK, named Kat Lowe, to just pose as the most vulnerable person online. And Kat has said that this has personally affected them. Even though Kat knew that she was just posing as this depressed person online, she was like, if I actually was to be at the end of the rope, like, they would have probably convinced me. And that is because with Lidao, with Comedy, with Falcon Girl, all the same person under different handles, there was never an alternative. Other people online would send you supportive messages when you say something along the lines of, you plan to commit suicide on the forum. With this person, that was never it. It was very much just structural. They would straight go to give you the advice of how to do it and then encourage you and be like, hey, have you done it yet? Have you done it yet? When do you plan to do it? Have you set a suicide date? It would just be pushy and there would never be even a mention of an alternative. Celia's idea here was really to finally have some actual evidence, like the chats that this friend of hers is having with this person showing this pattern. Because then if she was to go to the West Midlands police, well, they wouldn't be able to look away, because now there is an actual physical person here in the UK that she can bring to the police and can prove this pattern and how it compares to how he was chatting with people in different states in the US. Now, with these transcripts, with the weeks of evidence that Kat has gathered after chatting with Falcon Girl online, Celia goes to the police and she's like, okay, now here I am again. Please take me seriously. And they just tell her yet again, they just try to gaslight her and ask her, does your husband know that you're here? Do you want to call him? And she's like, I'm sane. I am freaking sane and more capable than you ever will be. So how do you want this evidence? Do you want it on a CD? I'll ask my son to put it on a CD for you. Little pieces of shit. So they're like, oh yeah, of course. No, bring us that CD. And she's just like, cool. So next time she brings the freaking CD with the evidence along. While Celia was corresponding with the West Midlands police, one 18-year-old girl from Ottawa in Canada was finding support from a new friend that she just met online. Nadia at that time was a student at the Carleton University. She was described by friends and family as somebody who was smart, who had a variety of interests. She was into poetry and she had a creative side, but she really wanted to study hard and to become a lawyer herself. But friends and family also noticed that around the year 2007, while she was still at uni, she got really depressed and she just seemed like she couldn't pull herself up and pull herself out of it. So on the 1st of March 2008, Nadia goes on one of these websites and she asks for advice on how to go through with a suicide quickly, but also in such a way that it should appear as an accident to friends and family. And here we actually have a chat of the responses Kami was sending to Nadia. And just pay attention to this. I'm gonna put it on screen to see if all of us can spot different patterns, because what I noticed is that this person is obviously trying to build rapport in really short amount of time, right? So this is how they do it. I think it's important for us to talk about it to avoid it from happening in the future, or if you spot somebody trying to really build rapport with somebody vulnerable, to cut that to the chase straight away. So he's trying to get her to set the webcam, and he's trying to justify it in such a way that then he would be able to observe her through that webcam and direct her further. She doesn't reply, and then Kami says, "Hope I'm being help to you in some way." She says, yes, it's a big relief to be able to talk to someone about it. Then you see them spell cool as Kewl, just run. If somebody spells cool like that and they're like, I'm in my 20s or my early 30s, no, you're not. No, you're not. Who the fuck you think you are? No. Run for the hills. Then Kami continues to say, I'm not trying to tell you how to do it, it's just my experience and opinions, that's all. And Nadia obviously says she understands and she wants what's best for them. Then Kami continues to justify why they're doing this. They're saying they had severe depression, that nothing has helped, so they're now looking for methods to let go. They're also saying they're the emergency ward nurse and that they have tried and practiced hanging themselves with a rope, and they realize that it's not such a bad experience. To which Nadia replies, when are you going to catch the bus? I didn't know this expression before, but it clearly means to commit suicide. So just again, awareness levels, if you ever see this online, this is what people are referring to. Then when Nadia proceeds to tell him that she wants to jump, she doesn't want to hang herself, then Kami, in my opinion, shows her true colors, really. They're saying, well, this is okay, but most people pass out before doing that. Plus, they don't want to leave a terribly messy mess for others to clean up. A couple of things from these messages. One, something that I see is such an attempt to fake empathy. When you look into it, it just does not seem like this person is genuinely suicidal. A. And B, also that they're really skilled at being this empathetic nurse, so you immediately don't buy it from your end. But obviously these vulnerable people cannot see through that. They can't see that way. They just see somebody who is helping them the best way that they can. But the second point is where this proceeds, and that is that this Kami person is really trying to get Nadia not to commit suicide the way that she intended to, because she wanted to jump from the bridge. And they're not doing it because they care for her, because they care for the families that are going to discover the body. They're doing it because they want them to proceed to commit suicide and hang themselves in front of a webcam so that they can watch. Unaware of these conversations, Cat Lowe from the UK is just in another chat, chatting to Kami. And Celia, being the bad bitch that she is, just told Cat, you know what? I kind of heavily suspect from all of the chats that I have seen, from all of the chats that you have had, that this person is a middle-aged guy. He doesn't really talk as a female nurse, does he? He doesn't really use the language that you and me would use. Let's just go with it. Let's just go with the flow. Let's just expose him, see what happens. Tell him, we know you're a guy. Tell him, we know you're not a nurse. Get him a bit paranoid, get him a bit riled up. So Kat is like, riling up men is my profession. So she goes online and is like, hey, we know you are just posing as a female. So can you just explain to us briefly, why do you keep posing as women? Like, is it purely sexual? You're getting off on this, right? Kami's response is, mostly because if, and only if, there were any legal consequences for my helping anyone, they would come looking for a girl. Which is a bit odd, because if you're not doing anything illegal, you think you're not, why are you thinking about the legal repercussions of it? And also very much calculated, because why do you think that they are going to look for a girl? Because in my head, I would immediately think it is somebody actually hiding their identity and posing as something that they're not. I wouldn't be like, oh, it's a girl. Finally now that the British police is in on it, that the Minnesotan police is looking at it, he makes a mistake himself. They don't even have to do much. Well, I mean, Celia has gone above and beyond. I'm not undermining anything he has done, and she will continue to do above and beyond. But in an email that he sends to her friend Kat while they're chatting, he makes a mistake, and he puts a name as the header of an email. And the name is William Melchert-Dinkel. So remember, by this point, Celia had a friend who was doing the stint operation, who was posing on her behalf as a vulnerable person in Minnesota, luckily on this chat. So she sends this name to the friend, and this friend, does the Googling, looks this person up, questions other people, and they're like, yeah, there is a William Melchert-Dinkel right here in Faribault. Let's fuck with him again. So this friend now contacts the deputy sheriff, contacts the police officer. They told them that Faribault is just out of their jurisdiction, but they have advised them to contact the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force. This was this federally funded task force aiming to combat the sexual exploitation of children. Just as this is happening, just as they're closing in, Faribault police station gets a call from nobody else but Ottawa police. And the Canadian police officers are there saying hey, we need you to do a check, obviously, we don't have the jurisdiction. But the name of the guy is William Melchert-Dinkel. And Faribault police is like, wait, what? Why do you know of his name? To which the Canadian police tells them, we are actually investigating a disappearance of a Canadian student here in Ottawa. She hasn't been seen for 2 weeks by anybody at the university. We are working against time here. We have done our due diligence, we have gone through her computer, and there was this creep, okay? He just gave us really off vibes. This is the message he has actually sent to us. He sent, Nadia died about 2 weeks ago, threw herself off a bridge into a frozen river. That was the last I heard from her about it, so I assume it happened. So this creep poses under this handle Falcon Girl, and yeah, we have his address, like we have the IP address, so we have his address. So can somebody please go and you do your American thing, because this is obviously not on our premise, but we are pretty sure that he knows exactly what happened to Nadia. The police immediately does go to Dinkel's house, and you're like, finally, this story is gonna have a freaking happy ending. Yes, Maja, give it to us. Well, no, because the neighbors say that he is actually on vacation, so he's gonna be home in about a week or two, and they just wait. They just have to wait. And while they wait, they look into Dinkel as a person. Who is he? What do we know about him? We only know about Dinkel's nursing career. We don't know really much else. And what a glowing nursing career a guy like this must have had, am I right? Because they have time, because he's on vacation, well, they go to the nursing board, they go to the hospitals that he has worked at, and they're like, hey, have you ever had any problems, any reasons to like suspect Dinkel? Like, was he a good nurse? And every single place was like, no, we fired his ass like a long time ago. I don't think he's a practicing nurse any longer. And why, you might ask? Well, according to a nursing board of Minnesota, he administered the wrong medication to the resident while working at the nursing home there. He was also negligent and would fail to document if somebody was in deteriorating condition and would later die because of his negligence. Every workplace stated that he had issues retaining information and was later diagnosed with a learning disability and attention deficit disorder, and he was also put on medication. So there was this one place that he resigned from, saying that he went in over his head. But then he got another job at this nursing home in Faribault in Minnesota, and here he was fired for the alleged abuse of 2 residents. It was only then, after this firing, that the Minnesota Board of Nursing limited his license, so he could still practice, but he had to do it with supervision. And then he translated that to supervising people online. Few weeks pass, he finally returns home, probably the neighbors alert the police. Again, I'm sorry, I think he went to Florida. Why not contact the police? Or where he is, why not issue the freaking alert for this guy's arrest? If he has the access to the internet, he's a freaking danger to the society. Honestly, in my opinion, if he has access to people, he's a danger to the society. So, I don't know, I don't understand laws. So they finally get to him, yeah, to his property. And they're like, let's question you, let's possess your laptops. He's like, hey, of course you can take them. What you should know though, when going through my computers. Laptops I don't think existed in 2008, did they? So yeah, as you go through my computers, right, there was this virus, like just as I was about to go on holiday, so everything has kind of been wiped out, so sorry about that. It's the girls, you know, the girls actually use like the same handle as me online. Yeah, Falcon Girl, you might have heard about it. I mean, that's probably why you're here, right? Yeah, so the girls did use that handle online when they would log on. Also, I mean, just really strange to mention this right now, but they do have some medical knowledge, right? Like their mom is a surgical nurse, like she's like really good at her job, and then there's me again. I have like some medical knowledge. Should I be worried? Is that why you're here? Have they had any concerning conversations when speaking with people online? Don't worry about it, officer. I'm gonna speak with them. If counseling is required, I'm gonna get the best for my girls. Oh my god, I just feel so sorry, you know, there's like so much knowledge in this family, and these girls just like logged in online and used this Falcon Girl, and they're just looking at him like, bitch, hey, bitch. So they let him speak, they're like, your girls, yeah? Falcon Girl, no, yeah, They're like pretending to be noting down while like scribbling and drawing Pikachu on a sheet or whatever. And they're just like, okay, cool, you finished speaking? Amazing. So we aren't actually new at this. Like, there's been like this girl from the UK, you won't believe it, like a 65-year-old Celia Blay. She kind of busted your ass, not gonna lie. She kind of has done all the work for us. So because of her and like a bunch of her buddies and everybody on the internet that thinks you're a creep, we know that all of these email addresses are registered under one name. Yours. Will Dinkel? Yeah. To which he's like, Oh, okay, yeah, my wife and kids don't actually have anything to do with it. They're like, yeah, now we're talking. Now we're talking. Elaborate more. So he said he did encourage people to commit suicide, but he felt really bad about it, that he actually did speak to his wife and kids about it, and his daughters made him realize that this isn't something that is done, that this isn't normal, and that around Christmas he decided not to do it any longer, and that, yes, this virus did possess my freaking computer, but I haven't done it since. No, I'm a new person now. I've been on this holiday in Florida and I'm a recovered man now. And these police officers look at one another and they're like, do we tell him? Yeah, I think we should. So we have just found a body in the river. The body just washed up in the banks in Canada. And it was this girl called Nadia. She was 18 years old and she jumped off the bridge in her skates to make it look like an accident. Does that in any way, shape or form sound familiar to you, sir? They're like, yeah, we are actually here to arrest you for advising and encouraging suicide in case of Nadia Kajuji and also Mark Triborough. So 3 years after Celia Blay has committed her freaking life to saving these lives online, finally William Dinkel has been arrested. The maximum he could face for these crimes would be 15 years and a $30,000 fine. But from this point on, this video is truly about, can his actions actually be found legally culpable? And the trial is truly going to be about two things. One is proving that these people wouldn't have gone through with their suicide had it not been for Dinkel. And that is a hard one because it's all about proving that these people would have still been alive. And as we know, they already came onto these websites just immediately asking about the ways to commit suicide. So it is really hard to determine it. And the way to prove this, the way to prove his guilt, will be proving that he assisted these suicides compared to just encouraging them. Let's break down the difference between assisting and encouraging without using suicide as an example. Let's have a quick break from that. So imagine you are hyping your mom up to make you an apple pie. It's your favorite dessert. You live for that shit. You're like, Mom, you make the best apple pie ever. That home Mary from down the road, yeah, that neighbor of ours, Sophie's mom. No, I've tried her apple pie. Cannot compare, ma. You're hyping your mom up. You're doing that thing that you did as a child when you ate at somebody else's house and then you came home and you had to pretend like it was the worst food you have ever consumed in your life. No, nobody else? Your mom would be like, have you eaten? And you'd be like, yeah, that whole Mary, the worst food I have ever consumed. In fact, did you have any dessert? Do you have some more food? Let me just go to the toilet, quickly vomit, throw this one up. And then I'll go to the kitchen, let's eat some decent freaking food in this household. And your mom would be like, yeah, nobody else can cook like I do. Yeah, you'd be doing the most, trying to hype your mom up. And trying to eat 2 dinners. A bit less relatable of a story than the first one you have just told, Maja. But that is the encouraging part of it. You hyping your mom up, getting her to make it herself. Assisting would be something like you are actually there in the kitchen, you're reading the recipe, you're passing on the ingredients, you're measuring the flour, you're measuring different things, you're actually, blending these ingredients, actually helping out bit by bit, however much involved you are. So that's assisting. So in court, in Dinkel's case, they had to prove that he assisted people in committing suicide, that he has given them step-by-step instructions without which they wouldn't be able to go through with it. And in order to do that, the prosecution really thought that they had a strong case. If you remember, in Mark's case, Mark actually just logged on, said this is what he wants to know, and Dinkel has given him detailed step-by-step instruction on how to commit suicide without having something high up to hang himself from. And in Nadia's case, when Nadia told him how she plans to commit suicide, well, in those instances, he told her the alternative. He gave her advice on how to do it, on how to get a webcam, on how to do it in her room at her dormitory, instead of what she initially planned. And that the fact that he is only being prosecuted for these 2 assisted suicides doesn't mean that he hasn't actually spoken with over 20 people online. It was actually discovered that he entered suicide pacts with at least 10 people online, out of which 5 people did go through with it. So based on that, and based on his nursing career, all of that fits perfectly into who this guy was. And the prosecution was really pursuing the harshest sentence here, because they said there was definitely enough evidence for this guy to be charged with assisted suicide in this case, because he has assisted them. He has provided the recipe for it. If you compare it to our previous story, he has actually given them step-by-step instructions. And they believe that he should be charged to the fullest potential, because without him, these victims would probably never have gone through with it. But when defense's term came around, they really did well, as much as I hate to say it, because they focused on 2 really basic things. His lawyers here weren't disputing the facts of the case, but they have said that he should be protected by free speech, because it isn't illegal to talk about and to promote suicide across the internet. And they said that the prosecution just didn't have enough, because this is how they define aiding suicide. They define it as somebody who intentionally advises, encourages, or assists another in taking the other's own life, as the person who is guilty of the crime. And here they said, well, at best, you have the encouraging component. These people already came online with their own plans on how to do it. They just asked for a bit of an encouragement, and he gave it to them. And the second argument that they really focused on was the fact that suicide isn't even illegal. So should they even be considering their client for something that is a crime, when technically what has happened isn't illegal in the first place? So at first they said he was protected by the First Amendment and the freedom of speech. And their second argument was that this is still consistent with the First Amendment, and that even if you consider he was inciting something, encouraging it, assisting it, well, he was assisting something that isn't a lawless action, that isn't actually illegal. And the courts unfortunately did agree with the defense. They said yes, he used deception, he did use fraud to trick these people online, but he didn't gain any material advantage because of this, so the First Amendment stands, and it applies here. The courts themselves said suicide also isn't an illegal action, and if the prosecution wanted to prove incitement, which is under the exception for the First Amendment, well, they didn't, because incitement technically is, have these actions led to the immediate reaction, to the immediate actions followed by Nadia and Mark. And they proved that it didn't. Like, he chatted with them over time, he discussed different methods, he was encouraging and, in my own opinion, assisting as well. But there were no aggressive chats saying like, do it now, this is how you do it, you need to do it now, turn on the webcam. There was not that level of immediacy, which somehow meant that there was a leeway for this guy to almost completely get away with it. Because let's talk about his sentence. At first, courts actually sided with the prosecution, and they have agreed that he intentionally advised and encouraged Tribro and Kajuji to commit suicide. And for this, at first, they sentenced him for 3 years in prison. But then he appealed, and the courts reconsidered it, and they reduced his sentence to only 360 days in prison, so less than a year, and then 10 years of probation. And the appeal worked, and the sentence was ultimately reduced exactly because of that assisting factor. His lawyers managed to prove that the courts had not made any findings as to whether he assisted in these suicides, and that they have initially only convicted him for advising and encouraging. And because of that, they have reversed his conviction, so he's out now. He's just on his probation, and he shouldn't reoffend within 10 years. Yay! So that is the case of Bill Dinkel. Little Bill Dinkel, yeah. What do you think about this case? Do you think that his sentence should have been reduced? Do you believe he should have served even more than 15 years in prison, maybe? Because of how callous he is? I have covered 3 assisted suicides for the podcast. I'm gonna drop the link below if you wanna listen to those. The laws have not caught up with this crime yet. And this case, unfortunately, is a showcase of how that is correct. I feel bad for people that were exploited by this guy, even if they didn't go through with it. For the families of Nadia and Mark, who had no idea that there is a person like this on the internet. It's just another level of callousness that adds to it. It pisses me off that they couldn't actually put forward his other conversations to court, because remember the fact that he actually tried to fake his own death in order to push that guy towards suicide. Like, he was escalating and getting more and more callous. And that's unfortunately what happens when somebody gets to this level and does it for years and gets off on it. And I feel enraged for Celia. Celia committed to this for 3 years. She didn't have to do any of this. She didn't have to help any of these people. But she did. She really proved like there are people in these chat rooms that are just purely good, that purely want to help out. And that's why I like to raise awareness of these cases, just so that people know that there are things like this happening on the internet. And to be aware that there are callous people like Dinkel, but also really good people that are there to help. Like, the amount of people Celia chatted with, the amount of suicides that this woman has prevented. Celia, listen, if you're still alive, you're here in the UK, I'll come to Wiltshire, like, hit me up. I know you know how. I know you know how, Celia. I know you will find this on the internet. I'm of belief that people over the age of 60 are actually better at internet than most of us. They're strategic. They know exactly where to go. They know exactly what they want from it, and they don't waste time just like doom scrolling on TikTok. Celia, we need to learn from you. Hit me up in the comments. Let's do this armchair detective work together, okay? And William, you piece of work. I somehow believe that you are looking for coverage of you on the internet. Yeah, something tells me that. Something tells me that you really get off on it. Even though you shouldn't be having access to the internet. So yeah, I'm not gonna spare any words towards you. I'm gonna let the comments tell the story for themselves. So if you have any opinions, drop them for our boy William Melchert-Dinkel in the comments. And if you like this type of content, make sure you like the video, make sure you subscribe to the channel, because there is more weird stuff coming up. And now for the outtakes. And I will see you, I think I will see you on Wednesday for a Gone Bad as usual. Until then, bye guys, and off to the outtakes. Off to the outtakes. What is going on, squeaky bitch? What is he searching for? Come on, appear with your ace on the camera. Where are you going? You going, Greg's?
For what?
For food? For sustenance? Okay, fellow Brits, listen. I'm drinking some Greg's. Fellow Brits, listen. Why do you say fellow Brits? I mean, I am technically British now, but nobody looking at this video thinks that straight away, do you? Hearing this accent? No. I'm a fake Brit, listen. I've been here for like over 10 years. So, you know, when you drink coffee from Greg's, does it just go through you? I think that's the nicest way to put it, does it? Like, if you have any, like, digestive problems, if you believe you have a parasite, like, inside of you, you drink a Greg's coffee and it shows. Wow, that is that for the gross corner of the day. Yeah, you see, Lee is like Jesus. She just resurrected. What? It's like Easter time. What about Lee? It's like Jesus resurrected. She turns water into wine. Trying to cope with this depressing ass topic. Yeah, she walks on water. Lee walking on water. Okay, shut up. Oh god, I hate this guy so much. Okay. And Dinkel, I'm not gonna waste any more time talking about you today. Actually, I think I have 60 seconds. I think I have a minute. So, you 50-something big ass forehead, wanna be nurse, but couldn't really be a nurse, couldn't really hold a nurse job himself, wanna be focused, but can't really focus much online, wanna get off by people committing suicide on camera for you because alive people just don't do it for you. exposed by a 65-year-old lady. Ah, that must have hurt. That must have hurt. Wanna be young person because you think you understand how young people talk about, because they say hugs at the end of each line and they spell cool as Kewl. Well, just think about this for a second. You wanna be everybody. Your kids, yeah, if they're in your life, they are there just because their names have been protected by all of these legal documents that I have found online. Just question yourself whether that was not the case. Would they still be there, Will? Bill. Would they? Yeah, you kind of wanted to throw them under the bus anyways, so kind of doubt that your kids would still be there in your life, to be frank with you. So that's just a thought that I want to leave you personally on after this video. You know, just think about it for a second before sleep every fucking day until the end of your miserable life. Yeah, cool. That's just a note to Will. I think that was done. That's all the 60 seconds that I have had. Now, bye. Let's just say you are to encourage your mom to make you like orange juice, and you're like, Mom, you make like the sickest orange juice. There's no orange juice like this in town, Mom. Like, listen, Mom, like that slut Mary from across the road, yeah, you know? Sophie's mom, I tried her juice. She can't even do it. She doesn't even know what a good juice tastes like. It's like some Tropicana bullshit. Tropicana is actually pretty decent. What's like that slut Mary? Have you ever as a child like eaten at somebody else's house, and then you know that you're gonna have to bullshit, like as good as that food is, you come home and your mom is like, have you eaten? And you're like, yeah, Mom, it was horrible. It was the worst food that I have ever eaten. I mean, as a matter of fact, I think I'm gonna just warm now in the toilet, like that was the worst. Like, you would be doing the most to convince your mom that like her cooking is the best. So when it comes to encouraging her to make juice, you're like, Mom, it's the best juice in town. You can do it right now. We have the oranges. It's going on. Squeeze a bit. 2 seconds, it's done. Assisting your mom in making a juice is more like, you know, you're just passing on the oranges. You're cutting, slicing through that orange. How many steps are there in making a juice, Maya? And then you're just giving it to her. And she's like, oh, squeezy. It's like literally 2 steps in making an orange juice. So why? Okay, this is the moment I realized this is a bad analogy. This is a bad example. It's like literally 2 steps in assisting somebody to make a juice. Okay, change the example. Switch it up. What do I use as an example? What food? What food? Also, let's like, once you choose the new example, let's like calm me down on the slut territory, okay? It's like that slut Mary, that slut. What should I use? What's the alternative use? Hoe. Wow, that, yeah, hoe is PG. Most definitely a PG word, Maya. Okay. Sandwich, let's use, no, Maya, that's sexist as fuck. Sexist as